standing tall against the roaring Atlantic. These lighthouses were once beacons of hope, guiding sailors through darkness and storm. But behind their glowing lights lie shadows. Shadows of tragedy, despair, and death. For centuries, lonely keepers tended these towers. Many never left. Some say their spirits still wander the spiral stairs, still watch the waves, still keep the lights burning long after their hearts stopped beating. Tonight, we set sail on a journey up the haunted East Coast. From the sun-bleached shores of Florida to the fog-drenched cliffs of Maine. These are places where the wind whispers secrets, where phantom lights dance in the mist, and where the sea will never let go of the souls it claimed. So lock your doors, dim your lights, and listen closely, because these are the 20 most haunted lighthouses on the East Coast, and their stories will follow you long after the tide rolls in. The St. Augustine Lighthouse in Florida stands as a towering sentinel on the northeastern edge of Anastasia Island, its black and white spirals reaching toward the Atlantic sky. It is one of the oldest and most storied lighthouses in America, a symbol of safety for sailors navigating the perilous coastline. But beyond its picturesque exterior lies a chilling reputation as one of the most haunted places in the United States. Visitors flock to admire its beauty, yet many leave with an unease they cannot explain. Whispering about voices in empty halls, laughter that drifts like a cold breeze, and the distinct sound of heavy boots echoing on spiral stairs where no living soul ascends. The origins of this haunting trace back to tragedy. The first St. Augustine Lighthouse was constructed in the early 1800s, but the tower that stands today was completed in 1874. During its construction, a devastating accident claimed the lives of several children. The story begins with a man named Hezekiah P. Pitty, who was the superintendent overseeing the project. He moved his family to the site, including his young daughters, who were full of life and mischief. The children found endless amusement in riding a supply cart used to transport materials up and down the construction site. On one fateful day, their innocent game turned deadly. The cart broke loose, plunging down the tracks into the bay. The children were trapped and drowned before help could arrive. The grief was unbearable, and the site became a place of mourning. Their laughter was silenced, or so it seemed. For decades, people have claimed that the Pitty children never truly left. Their playful spirits are said to linger within the lighthouse, their giggles echoing through the hollow stairwell late at night. Visitors and staff alike report the unmistakable sound of children running and laughing, even when the lighthouse is locked and empty. Some have heard the light patter of small feet on the stairs, while others have seen fleeting figures in Victorian-style clothing darting behind corners. These sightings often come with a rush of cold air, as if the temperature itself dips when the spirits draw near. But the children are not the only spectral residents of this lighthouse. A darker presence lurks within its walls, one tied to its history of keepers and sailors. Many accounts describe the sound of boots striking the spiral staircase, methodical and heavy, climbing ever upward. Yet when visitors investigate, they find no one there. Paranormal researchers believe this phenomenon could be linked to a former lighthouse keeper who met an untimely end. According to legend, one keeper fell from the tower to his death in the 1800s. His life extinguished in an instant on the hard ground below. Perhaps his soul lingers, bound by duty, endlessly patrolling the stairs he once climbed with pride. The sound of those phantom boots has become so frequent that guides warn visitors about it during nighttime tours. Some guests have sworn they not only heard the boots, but also felt the stairs tremble beneath their feet, as though someone unseen was passing by. A few claim to have caught glimpses of a shadowy figure near the top landing, standing so still it almost seems carved from darkness. These manifestations send chills through even the bravest investigators. One of the most famous encounters took place during a paranormal investigation filmed for television. The team set up cameras and audio equipment throughout the lighthouse, determined to capture proof of its spectral inhabitants. What they recorded stunned even seasoned ghost hunters. On the stairwell, a camera picked up the sound of boots climbing, followed by a distant laugh that echoed eerily from above. Yet no one was there. Another camera captured a figure leaning over the railing, watching silently before vanishing into thin air. These recordings only fueled the lighthouse's reputation as a hotspot for the unexplained. The unsettling experiences are not limited to professionals. Ordinary visitors tell stories of being touched by unseen hands, their hair tugged or clothing gently pulled as they climb the 219 steps to the top. Some feel as if they are being followed, a weighty presence just a step behind, though when they turn around, they are alone. Others report the strong smell of cigar smoke, lingering in the stairwell, a detail tied to one of the former keepers, who was known for his habit of smoking cigars while on duty. The scent appears suddenly and disappears just as quickly, leaving only questions in its wake. Perhaps the most poignant stories come from those who encounter the laughter of the children. Several guests have said they heard giggles drifting from the upper landings, only to find the tower empty upon inspection. One woman recounted hearing a little girl humming an old tune as she climbed the stairs. When she reached the top, expecting to see another visitor, there was no one, just a vast ocean stretching out beneath a crimson sunset. She left the lighthouse shaken, unable to explain the experience. Even outside the tower, the paranormal activity continues. Staff have seen shadowy figures moving along the grounds at night, disappearing into the darkness as quickly as they appear. The keeper's house, now a museum, is another source of strange occurrences, doors opening on their own, disembodied voices calling out, and sudden cold spots that make the hair on the back of the neck stand up. What compels these spirits to remain? Is it the suddenness of their deaths, the pull of duty, or the echoes of unfinished lives? Whatever the reason, the St. Augustine Lighthouse stands as more than a beacon for ships. It is a beacon for the unknown, a place where history and the supernatural intertwine. To this day, visitors continue to climb its spiral stairs, seeking breathtaking views and, perhaps, an encounter with the other side. And if you ever find yourself there, alone, in the tower, as dusk settles, listen closely. The sound you hear may not be your own footsteps. It might be the boots of a keeper, or the laughter of children long gone, reminding you that some stories never truly end. The Seguin Island Lighthouse in Georgia stands as a towering sentinel on the edge of the Atlantic, its black and white bands rising boldly against the shifting sky. Built to guide sailors safely through treacherous waters near the Savannah River, this lighthouse has watched over countless ships for centuries. Yet, behind its historical charm and postcard-perfect beauty lies a haunting reputation that draws ghost hunters, historians, and curious travelers alike. They come not just to marvel at the view, but to uncover the truth behind the ghost said to linger. Hear the restless spirit of a former keeper, whose glowing lantern still pierces the fog on moonless nights. The origins of Seguin Island Lighthouse date back to 1736, making it one of the oldest lighthouses in America. Its history, however, has been anything but peaceful. Hurricanes, fires, and wars have repeatedly damaged the structure, leading to multiple reconstructions over the years. The current tower, standing 145 feet tall, was completed in 1867 after the previous one was destroyed during the Civil War. Through centuries of storms and battles, the lighthouse keepers remained steadfast, risking their lives to ensure the light never went out. This devotion to duty would become the root of the haunting that persists to this day. The legend speaks of a keeper named James Montgomery, who served faithfully during the late 1800s. Montgomery was a man of unshakable resolve, known for his meticulous care of the lighthouse and its grounds. He lived a life of solitude, often battling fierce storms alone, climbing the spiral staircase countless times to ensure the beacon burned brightly. It is said that he carried an old brass lantern during his nightly rounds, the soft glow cutting through the darkness as he inspected every corner of the property. His sense of responsibility was legendary, but it came at a cost. According to local lore, Montgomery met a tragic end one storm-lashed night. The details vary depending on who tells the story. Some say he slipped on the rain-slicked stairs and fell to his death. Others claim he ventured out into the raging tempest to secure the oil house and never returned, his body swallowed by the sea. Whatever the truth, one fact remains constant. His life ended abruptly, and his spirit never left. Today, his ghost is said to wander the grounds, still performing the duties that defined his life. Visitors and staff have reported eerie encounters that seem to confirm the legend. The most common sighting is a figure dressed in an old-fashioned keeper's uniform, carrying a lantern that emits a faint, otherworldly glow. This apparition is often seen moving slowly along the pathways near the base of the tower, disappearing into the fog before anyone can approach. Some claim they've spotted him ascending the steps inside the lighthouse, the flicker of his lantern casting long, trembling shadows on the curved walls. When followed, the figure always vanishes before reaching the top. But the keeper's ghost does more than just appear. He makes his presence known in unsettling ways. People touring the lighthouse have heard the echo of boots on the spiral staircase when no one else is there. Others have felt a sudden drop in temperature, as if a cold draft were creeping along the narrow stairwell. At times, visitors report the strong smell of burning oil, the scent lingering, even though the lighthouse hasn't used oil lamps in decades. These occurrences are often accompanied by a profound sense of being watched, a weighty presence that seems to follow from step to step. One particularly chilling story comes from a local historian who spent a night on the grounds for research. As midnight approached, a thick fog rolled in from the ocean, shrouding the lighthouse in an eerie silence. The historian claimed he saw a dim light moving near the old oil house. Thinking it was a security guard, he called out, but received no reply. The light continued toward the tower, and then, without warning, lifted off the ground as if someone were climbing an invisible staircase. Moments later, it disappeared completely, leaving the historian alone with the sound of waves crashing against the shore. Modern paranormal investigators have also taken an interest in Seguin Island Lighthouse. Teams equipped with cameras, EMF meters, and audio recorders have captured unexplained phenomena, including strange whispers and the rhythmic creak of footsteps on empty stairs. One group recorded what sounded like a man's voice repeating the word light over and over, as if reminding himself of his eternal duty. Another captured a glowing orb drifting across the keeper's house before vanishing into thin air. Even in daylight, the atmosphere of the lighthouse feels charged with something beyond the ordinary. Visitors often describe an overwhelming sense of history pressing down on them as they climb the 178 steps to the lantern room. Some feel a sudden chill halfway up, as though an unseen figure brushed past them in the narrow space. Others report seeing faint impressions of footprints in the dust near the tower's base, leading toward the beach before fading away. What compels the keeper's spirit to remain after all these years? Some believe it is his unwavering dedication, binding him to the lighthouse he once served so faithfully. Others think his death was so sudden and violent that his soul never found peace. Whatever the cause, his presence endures, a silent guardian in the mist, keeping watch long after his mortal life ended. On foggy nights, when the ocean roars and the wind howls through the dunes, locals say you can still see his lantern glowing faintly in the distance. It sways as it moves, just like a man walking with purpose, ensuring the path is clear and the light still shines. Some travelers seek him out, hoping for a glimpse, while others hurry past, unwilling to risk an encounter. For in that lonely glow is a reminder that duty can outlast death and that some spirits refuse to fade into darkness. The Seguin Island Lighthouse remains a place of beauty and mystery, where the line between past and present blurs in the salt-tinged air. It is a beacon for ships, yes, but also for stories, drawing those who believe and those who want to believe that love, loss, and loyalty can echo across eternity. And if you stand there long enough, listening to the crash of waves and the whisper of wind, you might hear it. The soft crunch of footsteps in the gravel, the creak of an unseen door, and the distant glow of a lantern that has burned for more than a century. The Seguin Island Lighthouse stands as a lonely sentinel on South Carolina's rugged coast, its towering black and white frame rising from the edge of the sea like a steadfast guardian. Built to guide mariners safely through treacherous waters, it has endured hurricanes, erosion, and the relentless march of time. But as beautiful as this lighthouse is, its reputation carries a darker weight. For generations, locals have whispered of an eerie presence, a shadowy figure that appears during storms, standing motionless on the gallery, staring out to sea, as if waiting for something that will never come. The history of Hunting Island Lighthouse begins in the mid-19th century, when the original structure was erected in 1859 to protect ships navigating the perilous shoals near the Port Royal Sound. That first tower was destroyed during the Civil War, leaving the coast vulnerable until it was rebuilt in 1875. The new lighthouse, constructed of cast iron plates bolted together, was a marvel of engineering for its time. Its design allowed it to be dismantled and moved inland if the shoreline eroded, to far a precaution that would later prove necessary. Life at the lighthouse was harsh and lonely. Keepers and their families lived in isolation, surrounded by swamps and wild forests, with storms constantly threatening their fragile world. The sea was both a lifeline and a menace. When tempests rose, the keepers climbed the spiral staircase to keep the beacon burning, even as lightning split the sky and waves thundered against the shore. It was a life of devotion and danger, and not all who served here escaped unscathed. The legend of the shadowy figure begins with one of those storms, a hurricane so fierce it nearly tore the lighthouse from its foundation. According to the story, a keeper named Andrew Caldwell was on duty when the storm struck in the late 1800s. The wind howled like a chorus of demons, and sheets of rain hammered the glass lantern room. Caldwell worked tirelessly to keep the flame alive, knowing that ships depended on its light to survive the chaos. But at some point during the night, tragedy struck. Some say he was swept from the gallery by a monstrous gust, his body swallowed by the raging sea. Others claim he climbed out onto the balcony to watch for ships in distress, only to vanish without a trace. His body was never recovered. Since that night, people have reported seeing a dark figure on the gallery during storms, standing utterly still against the whipping winds and driving rain. It does not move or wave for help, it only gazes out over the ocean, as if searching for something lost long ago. Those who have seen it describe the figure as tall and gaunt, its outline blurred by mist, and sometimes illuminated by lightning flashes that make it seem almost skeletal. The most chilling detail: when the storm passes and the gallery is inspected, it is always empty. The door to the balcony remains locked from the inside. Locals say the figure is Caldwell, doomed to replay his final moments for eternity. Some believe he lingers out of duty, still watching for ships that may never come. Others think his spirit is trapped, unable to move on, because the sea never gave up his body. Whatever the reason, his presence has become part of the lighthouse's identity, a secret shared in hushed tones by island residents and lighthouse keepers alike. Visitors have their own stories to tell. On stormy nights, tourists staying nearby have claimed to see a faint silhouette through the sheets of rain, framed by lightning as it grips the railing of the gallery. A few brave souls who ventured to the lighthouse during bad weather speak of hearing strange sounds, heavy footsteps echoing on the metal stairs, the click of boots on the gallery, and the low groan of the door opening when no one else was there. Others report an overwhelming sense of dread, as if unseen eyes were watching them from above. Even on calm days, the lighthouse feels different. Many who climb its 167 steps describe a sudden drop in temperature near the top, accompanied by a strange stillness, as though the air itself holds its breath. Some claim to hear faint whispers carried on the wind, words too soft to make out, but urgent enough to raise goosebumps. Paranormal investigators have set up equipment in the lantern room and along the gallery, capturing unexplained audio-muffled voices, a man calling out indistinctly, and a rhythmic pounding like a fist against metal. In one chilling recording, a voice seemed to say the word storm, followed by a long, anguished sigh. The keeper's house, now a ruin swallowed by time and forest, adds to the atmosphere of lingering sorrow. People walking among the crumbled foundations have reported strange lights flickering in the distance, even when the tower stands dark. A few have claimed to see a lantern bobbing along the path at night, moving toward the sea before disappearing into nothingness. Is it Caldwell's spirit, still making his rounds, still bound by the duty that defined his life. What makes the legend of Hunting Island Lighthouse so compelling is its isolation. The island itself feels untamed, a place where nature reigns and the modern world fades away. Standing at the base of the lighthouse as a storm brews, you can almost feel the past pressing close to weight of history in the groan of the wind, the crash of waves, and the hiss of rain on iron. And then, if you look up at the gallery, you might see him, a solitary figure outlined against the furious sky, staring out to sea as the lightning splits the heavens. Those who have seen the shadow swear it feels real to be an illusion. Some leave shaken, vowing never to return. Others keep coming back, drawn by the mystery, hoping for another glimpse. But the figure never acknowledges them. It simply waits, and watches, and endures, just as it has for more than a century. The Hunting Island Lighthouse remains a place of beauty and melancholy, a beacon not only for ships but for stories of love, loss, and devotion beyond death. And if you ever find yourself there when the wind begins to howl and the horizon glows with the flicker of lightning, look toward the gallery. If you see a figure standing still in the storm, don't call out, don't wave. Just remember, some keepers never leave their post even after the sea has claimed their soul. The Morris Island Lighthouse rises eerily from the waters off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina. Skeletal tower, standing alone in the restless sea. Once a proud beacon guiding ships safely into Charleston Harbor, it now sits abandoned, its foundation gnawed away by relentless tides and shifting sands. Isolated and unreachable except by boat, the lighthouse looks like something out of another world, a ghost of the past left to decay in silence. Yet silence is not what visitors and locals report. For as night falls and the ocean darkens, strange lights flicker within its hollow shell. Phantom glows that shimmer and vanish without explanation, as if the old lighthouse still calls to sailors from beyond the grave. The history of Morris Island Lighthouse is steeped in triumph and tragedy. Built in 1876 after the Civil War, it replaced an older light that had been destroyed during the conflict. Standing 161 feet tall, the new structure was a marvel of its time, built to withstand storms and guide vessels through the treacherous waters of Charleston Harbor. For decades, its lamp burned brightly, powered first by oil, then by electricity, casting its beam across the Atlantic night. The lighthouse keepers lived austere lives, tending the light through hurricanes, floods, and blistering summers, ensuring the beacon never faltered. But the sea was a relentless enemy. Year after year, the tides crept closer, eroding the island that cradled the tower. By the mid-20th century, Morris Island was all but gone, and the lighthouse stood marooned in the surf, a lonely sentinel with no land to guard. The last keeper left long ago, but according to countless stories, someone or something still tends the light. Fishermen returning from late trips tell of a pale glow pulsing from the lantern room, though the lighthouse has been dark for decades. Boaters who drift to near speak of shimmering orbs floating around the gallery, swirling like the wisps before vanishing into the mist. Some even claim to have seen the old Fresnel lens blazing with impossible brilliance, its beam slicing through the fog as if warning of unseen danger. Yet when dawn comes, the tower stands empty, the lantern room shattered, its lens long removed. Who then lights the phantom beacon? Theories abound, but the most enduring legend centers on the spirits of the keepers, themselves men who devoted their lives to the lighthouse, and who refused to abandon their post, even in death. One story tells of a keeper named Samuel Brooks, who served during the late 1800s. Brooks was a meticulous man, fiercely proud of his duty. When a hurricane barreled toward the coast, he remained in the tower, determined to keep the light burning as the storm raged. He never emerged. When rescuers arrived days later, they found the lighthouse battered but standing, and Brooks' body washed up miles away on a desolate stretch of beach. Since then, locals claim his spirit roams the tower, his lantern swinging as he paces the gallery, waiting for a storm that never ends. Skeptics might dismiss these tales as tricks of the eye, moonlight on the waves, reflections from distant ships, but Too many witnesses insist on what they've seen. On moonless nights, the glow is said to pulse with a strange rhythm, like the heartbeat of the sea itself. Sometimes it flares suddenly, brilliant and white, only to wink out as quickly as it appeared. Sailors who've seen the light speak of an inexplicable feeling, as if someone were watching them from the lantern room, urging them away from unseen peril. A few claim they've heard sounds as well, faint clangs, like iron against iron, the creak of rusted gears turning, and, most chilling of all, the echo of a voice calling across the water. The words are lost to the wind, but the tone is unmistakable. A warning. Paranormal investigators have taken great interest in the lighthouse, though reaching it is perilous. Those who manage to set foot on its corroded base describe an oppressive stillness, broken only by the crash of waves and the shriek of gulls. Yet, within that stillness, something else stirs. Equipment records unexplained electromagnetic spikes near the lantern room, where no electrical source remains. Digital recorders have captured disembodied whisper snatches of sentences, fragments of names, and once, the chilling phrase, "Keep the light." Cameras aimed at the galleries sometimes malfunction, their batteries draining in minutes, only to flicker back to life and reveal nothing but empty railings slick with salt spray. But the strangest reports come from those who visit during storms. When the sky churns black and lightning forks across the horizon, witnesses say the phantom light burns brightest. Some claim to have seen a figure silhouetted in the flashes, a man standing rigid in the gallery, his coat whipping in the wind, one arm raised as if shielding his eyes from the storm. The image lasts only an instant before the darkness swallows it whole. No boat dares linger after that. Even from the shore, the lighthouse draws uneasy stares. On certain nights, beachgoers swear they've seen a distant spark glimmering from the lantern room, growing brighter as the tide rolls in, then fading to nothing. Others tell of eerie shadows writhing along the tower's walls, like smoke rising from an unseen fire. Some speak of dreams, vivid, restless dreams that come after gazing too long at the forsaken beacon. Dreams of drowning, of endless spirals of iron stairs, and of a voice whispering, "Light the lamp." What compels these restless spirits to remain? Is it duty, love, or something darker? Perhaps the lighthouse, half swallowed by the sea, has become a threshold, a place where the living and the dead share the same wind, the same salt, the same unending watch. Whatever the truth, the Morris Island Lighthouse is more than a relic. It is a monument to devotion, a tomb without a grave, and a beacon that refuses to die. If you ever find yourself on the quiet beaches of Charleston after dusk, look out across the water. The tower will rise against the horizon, black and skeletal, the waves clawing at its base. And if the night is still and the sky clear, you may see nothing at all, just darkness and stars. But if the fog creeps in and the wind begins to moan, watch closely. You might glimpse a flicker in the lantern room, faint at first, then flaring bright, a ghostly glow that should not exist. And as you stare, heart pounding, ask yourself this: is someone out there, still keeping the light? Or is it the lighthouse itself, unwilling to surrender, calling to the lost across an endless, haunted sea? The Cape Hatteras Lighthouse rises like a black and white spiral sentinel above the outer banks of North Carolina, standing against the fury of the Atlantic Ocean. At 198 feet, it is the tallest brick lighthouse in America. A towering beacon meant to guide ships through the most dangerous waters on the eastern seaboard. But these waters are not just treacherous, they are cursed with centuries of death. This is the graveyard of the Atlantic, a stretch of coastline that has claimed more than 2,000 ships and countless lives. And some say the sailors who perished here never found peace. Their spirits haunt the lighthouse and its windswept shores, eternally searching for the safe passage that eluded them in life. For centuries, the waters off Cape Hatteras have been a mariner's nightmare. Hidden shoals shift unpredictably beneath the waves, and sudden storms roar in without warning, turning calm seas into raging death traps. Even experienced captains fell victim to these waters, their vessels torn apart and their crews dragged to icy graves. The earliest shipwrecks date back to the 1500s, and over the years, The tally of wreckage grew. Spanish galleons, Confederate blockade runners, merchant schooners, and modern steamships all met their doom on these shoals. The wreckage still litters the ocean floor, a silent testament to the fury of the sea. The first Cape Hatteras lighthouse was built in 1803 in an attempt to end this slaughter. Its light was a beacon of hope, piercing the darkness to guide ships away from the deadly sandbars. But the sea would not be tamed so easily. Storm after storm pounded the coast, and still the disasters came. By the time the current lighthouse was completed in 1870, thousands of lives had already been lost. For those who tended the light, the nights were long and harrowing. Storm winds shrieked like tortured souls. Salt spray lashed the windows of the lantern room, and the vast darkness beyond held the cries of men dying in the waves. It is those cries, some say, that can still be heard when the wind howls through the dunes. Visitors walking along the beach after dark tell of voices rising above the surfeit, but desperate, calling for help in the blackness. Others have heard the mournful clang of a ship's bell, though no vessel rides the waters. And then there are the apparitions. People speak of figures emerging from the mist along the shore, gaunt and sodden, their faces pale, their eyes hollow with despair. They vanish when approached, leaving only footprints in the wet sand that end abruptly as if swallowed by the sea. The lighthouse itself is said to harbor its own spirits. Those who climb its 257 steps often report an uncanny feeling, as if unseen eyes follow them upward. The narrow staircase echoes with phantom footsteps, heavy and deliberate, climbing just behind. Sometimes a low moan drifts down the stairwell, rising above the groan of the wind. And then there is the chill, sudden, biting cold that grips climbers halfway up, strong enough to raise gooseflesh, even in the sweltering heat of summer. Rangers who have locked the tower at night claim to hear movement inside long after it should be empty. The metallic clang of boots on the stairs echoing in the darkness. Among the most enduring tales is that of the Phantom Keeper. Witnesses describe a tall figure in an old-fashioned oilskin coat, his lantern glowing with an eerie, unearthly light. He is seen pacing the gallery during storms, swinging his lantern as though signaling to ships on the horizon. Some believe he is the spirit of a devoted keeper who perished during a hurricane, refusing to abandon his post even as the sea clawed at the tower. Others claim he is not a keeper at all, but a drowned sailor, doomed to replay his final desperate attempt to find the light that never saved him. Paranormal investigators who have dared to spend the night inside the lighthouse describe an atmosphere thick with energy, as though the walls themselves hold the anguish of centuries. Audio recordings captured faint, chilling phrases. Lost, save us, and once, a guttural whisper of the word light. Cameras aimed at the gallery have malfunctioned without explanation. Batteries drained in minutes, only to spring back to life after the figure had vanished from view. Outside on the beach, investigators report glowing orbs floating above the surf, darting like sparks in the darkness before plunging into the sea. The beach itself holds terrors of its own. On fog-choked nights, witnesses have seen ghost ships gliding silently across the horizon, their sails glowing in the moonlight. These spectral vessels vanish when approached, leaving nothing but the hiss of waves and the distant boom of surf. Fishermen speak of feeling invisible hands clutching at their legs when they wade into the breakers, pulling hard enough to nearly drag them under. They believe these are the spirits of drowned men, reaching out in their endless agony, desperate to pull the living into the depths. What binds these spirits to this place? Perhaps it is the violence of their deaths, torn from life in the freezing grip of the Atlantic. Perhaps it is unfinished business, a longing for home, for safety, for a harbor they never reached. Or perhaps the lighthouse itself is a magnet for the lost, its beam calling not only to ships but to souls adrift in the darkness. Today, Cape Hatteras Lighthouse is a beloved landmark, visited by thousands who come to marvel at its size and beauty. But when the tourists leave and the night wind sweeps in from the ocean, its character changes. The dunes seem to whisper, the waves roar like an open grave, and the air grows heavy with the weight of unseen eyes. Look out to sea, and you may glimpse a phantom light far beyond the breakers, flaring and fading as if guiding a ship that no longer exists. Or you may see shapes moving through the mist, silent and gaunt, their hollow faces turned toward the horizon. The Bodie Island Lighthouse rises above the marshlands of North Carolina's Outer Banks, its black and white stripes stark against the ever-changing sky. Standing 156 feet tall, it has served as a beacon for sailors navigating the perilous waters near Oregon Inlet for generations. Its lantern casts a steady glow across the Atlantic, but beyond its functional beauty lies a chilling reputation. As darkness falls and the tourists leave, the lighthouse takes on an entirely different presence. Those who linger after hours speak of echoes that have no source, heavy boots clanging against a spiral staircase, and distant voices calling out from the shadows above. Long after the last person has gone, the history of Bodie Island Lighthouse begins with tragedy and determination. The original structure, built in 1847, collapsed due to a poor foundation. A second lighthouse rose in 1859, but was destroyed during the Civil War by retreating Confederate soldiers determined to keep it from Union hands. The present tower, completed in 1872, has withstood storms, hurricanes, and the slow encroachment of the sea. For decades, it was manned by keepers whose lives revolved around the rhythm of the light tending the massive Fresnel lens, climbing the 214 steps to the lantern room multiple times a day, and braving brutal weather to ensure the beacon never failed. It was an existence defined by isolation, duty, and, at times, danger. And some say those keepers never truly left. Reports of strange occurrences at Bodie Island have circulated for years. Visitors who climb the narrow, winding staircase speak of an uneasy feeling, as though someone unseen is following close behind. Even in the middle of the day, the air inside can feel unnaturally still. The silence broken only by the hollow ring of footsteps that sometimes continue even when no one else is on the stairs. At night, the activity intensifies. Maintenance workers and rangers who VA lock the lighthouse for the evening tell of hearing heavy boots echoing up the spiral steps, slow and deliberate, accompanied by the faint clink of metal, perhaps the sound of tools swinging from a long-forgotten belt. Some claim the noise comes from the top landing, as though an unseen figure is pacing the gallery, peering out toward the restless sea. The voices are perhaps the most disturbing phenomenon. They drift down the stairwell in low, indistinct tones, like fragments of conversation carried on the wind. Witnesses describe the voices as male, rough, and commanding, though the words remain muffled and impossible to understand. A few have reported hearing their own names whispered in the darkness, sending them scrambling for the exit. Others speak of sudden gusts of icy air rushing down the stairwell, strong enough to make the lantern sway, even when the night outside is calm. Local lore attributes these hauntings to the spirits of former keepers, men who devoted their lives to this isolated tower and whose sense of duty binds them here still. One of the most enduring stories is that of Keeper Thomas Miller, who served during the late 1800s. Known for his relentless work ethic, Miller was said to be a man of few words, obsessed with the perfection of his light. Legend has it he died on the staircase after suffering a fatal heart attack during his nightly rounds. Some say his spirit continues to climb those same steps, lantern in hand, making sure the beacon never fails. Visitors claim that when they reach the landing where Miller is said to have fallen, they feel a sudden heaviness in the air, as though the walls themselves are holding their breath. In addition to sounds and voices, there have been sightings fleeting but unforgettable. A handful of guests have reported glimpsing a figure at the top of the stairwell, silhouetted against the faint glow of the lantern. The figure appears tall and broad, dressed in what looks like an old-fashioned keeper's coat. It stands perfectly still, hands resting on the iron railing, before vanishing without a sound. On rare occasions, people outside the lighthouse have seen a dim light moving along the gallery at night. Long after the tower has been closed and darkened, the glow flickers like an old oil lamp, swinging back and forth as if carried by an unseen hand. Paranormal investigators have taken a keen interest in Bodie Island Lighthouse, Teams equipped with audio recorders and thermal cameras have documented unexplained activity inside the tower. EVP's electronic voice phenomena captured during overnight sessions include faint whispers, the word light spoken clearly in a gravelly tone, and what sounds like boots scraping against metal steps. Thermal imaging has revealed cold spots lingering in specific sections of the staircase, even when the surrounding air remains warm and humid. One investigator claimed that, while setting up equipment near the base of the stairs, he felt something brush past him, firm, like a shoulder, though he was completely alone. The surrounding grounds also have their share of eerie stories. At night, when fog curls across the marshes and the wind sighs through the grasses, some visitors say they've seen shadowy figures moving near the keeper's quarters, only to vanish into the darkness. Others report the sound of a door slamming shut inside the empty tower, or the distant ring of a bell signal that hasn't been used in over a century. What draws these spirits back, night after night? Perhaps it is the weight of their former responsibilities, an eternal obligation to keep the beacon alive. Or perhaps it is something deeper, connection forged by years of solitude, storms, and the endless roar of the Atlantic. Whatever the reason, Seguin Island Lighthouse remains a place where the past is never truly gone, where every gust of wind and echo of footsteps might carry a whisper from another time. If you ever find yourself there after sunset, with the last light draining from the sky and the marshlands cloaked in mist, pause at the base of the tower and listen. You may hear the slow clang of boots on iron steps, rising ever upward, followed by a voice you can't quite place, murmuring from the shadows above. And if you dare to climb those stairs, step by step, into the dark, remember this: you may not be alone. The Augustine Lighthouse stands on the quiet shores of North Carolina's Outer Banks. Its whitewashed tower gleaming under the sun by day and glowing softly under the moon by night. At just 75 feet tall, it is the second oldest operating lighthouse in the United States. Its steady beam guiding mariners through the shifting shoals and shallow waters of Augustine Inlet for nearly 2 centuries. But behind its tranquil appearance lies a legacy, steeped in blood, piracy, and ghostly legends. For this was once the haunt of the most infamous pirate of Oldward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, and many believe his restless spirit still stalks the island, forever tied to the place where his brutal life met its end. The story begins in the early 1700s, during the golden age of piracy. Augustine Island was an ideal hideout for outlaws of the sea, with its secluded coves and twisting channels offering safe harbor for pirate ships. It was here that Blackbeard made his final stand in 1718, after a reign of terror that stretched from the Caribbean to the Carolinas. The pirate king was cornered in Augustine Inlet by British naval forces. The battle that followed was a frenzy of smoke, fire, and blood. Blackbeard fought like a demon, sustaining more than 20 sword wounds and 5 gunshots, before he finally fell. Legend says his head was severed and hung from the bowsprit of a ship as a grim trophy, while his body was thrown into the inlet, where it sank into the dark waters. But death did not end Blackbeard's story. In the centuries since that bloody day, countless witnesses have claimed to encounter his ghost along these shores. The tales are chilling and persistent, tied closely to the Augustine Lighthouse, which was built nearly 100 years after his death. Some say the pirate's spirit was drawn to the light, a beacon shining over the same waters where he once ruled and died. Others believe he roams the island in search of something lost, his buried treasure, his severed head, or perhaps simply peace that never came. One of the most enduring legends involves a phenomenon known locally as Teach's Light. On stormy nights, when the wind lashes the sea into whitecaps and the sky churns with thunder, strange lights are said to flicker near the lighthouse. Skeptics dismiss the lights as marsh gas or reflections of distant ships. But those who have seen them up close insist they burn too steadily, too deliberately, to be natural. Blackbeard's ghost is not content with mere lights. There are stories of a towering figure appearing near the lighthouse, broad-shouldered, with wild hair and a thick beard, his eyes glowing like coals in the night. Witnesses describe him wearing a long coat soaked as if from the sea, his boots sloshing water with every step. Some say he carries a cutlass dripping with blood. Most terrifying of all, a few claim to have seen him headless, a dark silhouette against the pale beam of the lighthouse, his massive body swaying as if searching the sand for something he will never find. These apparitions vanish when approached, leaving only the crash of the surf and the moan of the wind through the dunes. Strange sounds often accompany these sightings. Visitors walking along the beach at night report hearing the clang of metal, like swords striking in battle, echoing faintly over the roar of the ocean. Others have heard the low, guttural laugh of a man carried on the wind, a laugh that chills the blood and seems to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. On rare occasions, people claim to hear a voice calling out, deep and commanding, though the words are lost in the waves. Some believe these sounds are echoes of Blackbeard's last fight, replaying endlessly in the place where he met his doom. Even inside the lighthouse, the hauntings persist. Keepers in years past spoke of cold drafts sweeping through the narrow spiral staircase, even when every window was shut. Some claim to hear heavy footsteps ascending the stairs, slow and deliberate, though no one else was in the tower. A few reported seeing a flicker of orange light near the lantern room, like a torch burning in the dark, only to find the room empty when they arrived. Today, rangers and maintenance crews occasionally tell of tools disappearing and reappearing in odd places, or the sound of boots on the stairs after the building has been locked for the night. Paranormal investigators who have explored Ocracoke Lighthouse describe an atmosphere thick with energy, as though the walls themselves hum with secrets. EVP recordings have captured chilling whispers, fragments of words like treasure and blood, spoken in a deep, gravelly voice. On one occasion, an investigator asked aloud, "Who is here with us?" The response, faint but distinct, came seconds later. Teach, another team reported seeing a red orb hovering near the gallery before shooting off into the night sky like a comet. Why does Blackbeard linger here? Some say his soul cannot rest because his body was desecrated, his head displayed as a warning to others. Others believe he is bound to the place by greed, doomed to search forever for the treasure he buried and never reclaimed. There are even those who claim the strange lights are his spirit, guiding ghostly ships to a safe harbor in death, a twisted echo of the lighthouse's original purpose. If you visit Ocracoke Island, you'll find a place of wild beauty, a world of sandy dunes, swaying grasses, and the endless roar of the sea. The lighthouse still stands proud, its beacon sweeping across the waves as it has for generations. But when night falls and the wind begins to moan through the inlets, remember the stories. Watch the waters for that eerie red glow. Listen for the clang of phantom swords and the laughter of a dead pirate carried on the wind. And if you glimpse a dark figure near the tower, tall and headless against the light, do not linger. For on these haunted shores, Blackbeard still walks, his spirit as restless as the sea that claimed him. The Corithuc Beach Lighthouse rises in quiet isolation on the northern edge of North Carolina's Outer Banks. Its unpainted red brick tower, standing 162 feet above the wild dunes and swaying grasses. Unlike its black and white striped cousins further south, this lighthouse was left bare to reveal every brick, as if time itself etched its story into the walls. Completed in 1875, it was built to guide ships through a stretch of coastline notorious for wrecks, a place where storms roll in with little warning and the sea devours all in its path. For more than a century, its steady beacon has pierced the night. But some say the light is not the only thing that lingers here. For on bitter winter nights, when the wind howls across the empty beaches and frost coats the iron stairs, the sound of a woman weeping echoes through the tower. The origins of this ghostly lament are shrouded in mystery. But the stories begin with the lives of the keepers, who once called the lighthouse home. In its early years, tending the Currituck Light was a life of harsh isolation. The keepers and their families lived on the remote grounds, cut off from the world by miles of sand and stormy waters. Their days revolved around the tower hauling fuel, polishing the lens, climbing the 220 steps to the lantern room over and over again. Storms were relentless, winters brutal, and the loneliness could drive even the strongest spirits to despair. It was in this solitude, locals say, that tragedy struck. One of the most enduring legends speaks of a young keeper's wife who came to Currituck in the late 1800s. She was said to be beautiful and full of life, but the isolation crushed her joy. Her husband, consumed by his duties, spent his nights high in the lantern room, leaving her alone in the keeper's quarters below. As the months passed, her letters to family spoke of the silence, of the endless sound of waves, and of the darkness pressing in from every side. Then one winter, during a storm that sealed the island off from the mainland, the woman vanished. Some believe she took her own life, driven mad by loneliness and the ceaseless roar of the sea. Others say she slipped while walking the frozen beach and was swept away by the tide. Her body was never found. It wasn't long after her disappearance that the crying began. Keepers reported hearing the sound, first a soft sobbing that drifted through the stairwell late at night. At first, they thought it was the wind moaning through the cracks, but the sound grew clearer, sharper, heartbreakingly human. It rose from the bottom of the tower, curling up the spiral of iron steps, until it reached a lantern room, then faded into silence. Men who prided themselves on their stoic nature confessed to feeling their blood run cold at the sound. Some fled the tower entirely, unwilling to face whatever shared the night with them. Even after the lighthouse was automated and the keepers were gone, the weeping did not stop. Maintenance crews working during the off-season claimed to have heard it low and mournful, echoing up from the base of the tower when the building was locked and empty. Visitors who come in winter, when the crowds have vanished and the wind whips the dunes, tell of the same eerie sound. A woman crying softly somewhere in the darkness, her grief carried on the chill air. The phenomenon is not limited to sound alone. There are stories of icy drafts swirling suddenly on the staircase, strong enough to raise gooseflesh even when the heater hums below. Others speak of the sensation of being watched, a prickling awareness that someone unseen is standing just behind them as they climb the endless steps. Some visitors have even claimed to see her reflection. In the lantern room's glass panes, they glimpse a pale face framed by dark hair, eyes hollow with sorrow, staring back at them for a heartbeat before vanishing into the night. On the coldest nights, when the sky is clear and the stars burn like ice above the Atlantic, the activity is said to intensify. The sobbing becomes louder, laced with anguish so raw it twists the heart. A few witnesses insist they have heard words, fragmented pleas, whispers of why, or come back, spoken in a voice heavy with despair. Once, during a restoration project in the 1980s, a worker swore he heard footsteps on the stairs when he was the only one inside. The steps were slow, dragging, as though someone climbed with leaden feet. When he called out, the footsteps stopped, but the sound of crying rose in answer, echoing from somewhere deep below. Local historians have searched for records to explain the haunting, but no official document mentions the woman's fate. Some believe her story is a composite of many tragedies' wives and daughters who lived and died in isolation. Their dreams dashed against the same cruel shores that claimed so many sailors. Others think she is something older, a spirit born of the land and sea itself, a voice of eternal mourning for all the lives lost on this deadly coast. Whatever the truth, her presence feels undeniable to those who have heard her cry. Even the surrounding grounds seem touched by her sorrow. On winter evenings, when the marsh freezes and the moon casts its silver glow across the dunes, people claim to see a shadow moving near the base of the tower, a slender figure gliding soundlessly over the frost-hardened earth. Some say she wanders toward the beach, her head bowed as if searching the tide for something precious swept away long ago. Others swear they have seen her pause beneath the lighthouse, lifting her face to the beam that sweeps endlessly over the black Atlantic, as though yearning for a light that will never guide her home. Today, the Currituck Beach Lighthouse is a beloved landmark. drawing visitors eager to climb its winding staircase and take in the sweeping view of the Outer Banks. But for those who venture there in winter, when the wind sharpens and the world grows still, it becomes something more, a place where grief lingers like a shadow, where the past whispers through the bricks, and where the sound of a woman's broken heart rides the cold night air. If you find yourself inside the tower on such a night, pause and listen. Beneath the groan of the wind and the crash of distant waves, you may hear it, a soft, sorrowful sobbing that winds through the spiral stair, rising like a ghost from the depths of time. And if you do, know this: some tears never dry, and some souls never find their way home. The Cape Henry Lighthouse stands steadfast at the entrance of the Chesapeake Bay in Virginia. Its weathered stone walls bearing witness to more than 2 centuries of maritime history. Completed in 1792, it is the oldest federally authorized lighthouse in the United States, a beacon that guided countless ships through treacherous coastal waters. Yet beneath its historic facade lies a haunting mystery, one that continues to captivate visitors and locals alike. It is the story of a lighthouse keeper who vanished without a trace, leaving behind whispers of restless spirits and unexplained phenomena that linger within the tower's ancient stones. In the 1800s, the Cape Henry Lighthouse was an essential guide for sailors navigating the dangerous shoals and unpredictable currents of the Virginia coastline. The keepers who tended the light led solitary, demanding lives, responsible for maintaining the lamp and lens that pierced the darkness each night. Their world was one of isolation and routine, marked by the ceaseless roar of the Atlantic and the endless climb of the spiral staircase that led to the lantern room. One such keeper, known only through fragmented accounts and faded journal entries, became central to the lighthouse's most enduring legend. This keeper was described as diligent and devoted, a man whose life was intertwined with the light he tended. Yet, despite his dedication, a heavy silence envelops the story of his disappearance. It is said that during a stormy winter night, when the winds howled and the waves crashed against the shore, the keeper mysteriously vanished. His quarters were found undisturbed, his tools in place, and the lamp burning bright. No sign of struggle or farewell was ever discovered. The only clue was a faint, lingering chill that seemed to seep from the tower itself. The vanishing ignited fear and speculation among the local community. Some believed the keeper had fallen victim to the treacherous weather, swept away by the angry sea, or lost in the storm's fury. Others whispered darker possibilities, that he had been claimed by something supernatural, bound forever to the lighthouse he guarded. Over the years, these whispers grew into stories of haunting and eerie encounters, tales passed down that gave the lighthouse an otherworldly reputation. Visitors and lighthouse staff began reporting strange occurrences that defied logical explanation. Many described hearing footsteps ascending the spiral staircase long after the tower had been locked and emptied for the night. These steps were heavy and measured, echoing through the stone walls with a presence that felt both real and spectral. Several witnesses spoke of glimpsing a figure in a keeper's oilskin coat standing silently in the lantern room, gazing out over the dark waters. This apparition never spoke, but seemed to watch protectively, as if still fulfilling his duty. The atmosphere inside the lighthouse often turns inexplicably cold, especially near the base of the stairwell, where visitors feel sudden chills that raise goosebumps, even on warm days. Some claim to sense a weighty presence following them, a silent companion moving just behind as they climb the winding steps. Others have reported fleeting glimpses of shadowy forms flickering at the edge of their vision, shapes that vanish the moment they turn to look directly. Local lore adds to the eerie ambience with tales of the lighthouse lamp flickering erratically despite modern electric power, as if responding to unseen hands. There are stories of voices, murmurs, and distant calls that drift through the tower in the stillness of night. Occasionally, these sounds seem to carry the keeper's name or urgent warnings, barely audible but unmistakably human. Paranormal investigators, drawn to Cape Henry Lighthouse, have captured compelling evidence supporting the legends. Electronic voice phenomena, EVP recordings, reveal whispers that seem to plead or command. One investigator reported hearing a faint but clear stay with the light during an overnight session. Thermal imaging has detected sudden cold spots and unexplained heat signatures near the lantern room, areas devoid of any heat source. Cameras have recorded orbs of light floating through the stairwell, darting and weaving as if alive. The mystery deepens when considering the lighthouse's long history of storms and shipwrecks. Cape Henry's waters have claimed countless vessels, many lives lost to sudden tempests and hidden reefs. The lighthouse was built to save sailors, yet the tragic irony is that some keepers themselves succumbed to the relentless forces of nature or vanished under inexplicable circumstances. The vanished keeper's spirit is often believed to be among those who linger, watching over the coastline to ensure others do not share his fate. Today, the Cape Henry Lighthouse stands as both a cherished historical landmark and a site of haunting intrigue. Tourists flock to climb its 191 steps and gaze out upon the Chesapeake Bay's vast expanse, marveling at the panoramic views and imagining the lives once lived within its walls. But as daylight fades and shadows lengthen, the lighthouse reveals its other face. The breeze carries whispered secrets, the stones seem to hold memories of vanished souls, and the light itself continues to beckon, not just to sailors, but to restless spirits bound to its glow. Those who visit after hours sometimes find themselves overcome by an inexplicable sense of presence, as if watched by unseen eyes. The spiral stairs can feel like a passage not just through space, but through time, connecting the living to the past. Many climb hesitantly, pausing to listen for footsteps or soft voices that might reveal the keeper's restless heart. The story of the vanished keeper of Cape Henry Lighthouse is a reminder of the thin line between duty and destiny, isolation and mystery. It speaks to the profound human connection to light in the darkness, both literal and metaphorical, and the lengths to which one might cling to purpose, even beyond death. The lighthouse remains a beacon of safety for those at sea, but for those who know its secrets, it is also a silent monument to a man who disappeared into the night. His watch never truly ended. If you stand beneath the Cape Henry Lighthouse on a cold, storm-swept night, listen closely to the howling wind and crashing waves. You may hear the slow, deliberate tread of footsteps climbing the ancient stairs, the faint murmur of a voice urging vigilance, and perhaps catch a glimpse of a shadowy figure silhouetted against the glowing lantern. In that moment, the past and present merge, and the lighthouse keeps its eternal watch, haunted, mysterious, and never alone. The Augustine Lighthouse stands tall and solitary on the windswept barrier island that straddles the border between Virginia and Maryland. Its red brick tower, built in 1833, has watched over the shifting sands and restless sea for nearly 2 centuries. Known for its quiet strength and the wild beauty of its surroundings, Seguin Island is famous for the herds of wild ponies that roam freely across the dunes, their ghostly silhouettes outlined against the crashing surf. But beyond the natural charm lies an eerie legend that whispers through the salty air, a haunting carried on the wind. The neighing of phantom horses echoing across the island, a spectral chorus that unsettles even the most steadfast visitors. The wild ponies of Augustine are beloved by locals and tourists alike, descendants of horses believed to have been left by early settlers or shipwreck survivors. They have adapted to the harsh island environment, roaming the beaches, marshes, and forests in small bands. Their appearance is a symbol of freedom and resilience, and they move with an uncanny grace, sometimes vanishing behind dunes or disappearing into thick brush, as if part of the island itself. Yet, as serene as these creatures seem, the island holds a deeper, darker story, one that blends the living with the supernatural. The legend of the phantom horses dates back generations, passed down through whispered tales told by island residents and rangers. It begins with a tragic event in the late 1700s, when a group of horsemen from the mainland rode across the island's treacherous sands, seeking refuge from a fierce storm. Caught off guard by sudden flooding and rising tides, their horses became trapped in the quicksand and marshes. The riders fought desperately to free their mounts, but the sea claimed them all. Their bodies were never recovered, swallowed by the shifting sands and turbulent waters. Locals say that, on certain nights, especially during storms or when the fog rolls thick over the dunes, the ghostly hoofbeats of those drowned horses can still be heard. The sound rises faintly at first, a distant thudding like a heartbeat against the earth, then grows louder, filling the air with an eerie cadence that reverberates across the empty beaches. Alongside the pounding hooves, there comes the unmistakable sound of and wild, mournful cries that carry on the wind, rising and falling like the surf itself. Visitors who have experienced these phantom sounds describe an overwhelming sense of unease, as if unseen eyes watch from the darkness. Some speak of seeing shadowy figures galloping across the dunes, horses outlined in pale moonlight, their manes streaming behind them like smoke. These spectral riders vanish when approached, melting into the mist or dissolving among the tall grasses. Others have glimpsed fleeting glimpses of glowing eyes watching from the brush, or heard the rustle of movement just beyond the edge of vision. The Augustine Lighthouse itself seems to share a connection with these eerie happenings. Situated near the heart of the island, the tower has witnessed centuries of storms, shipwrecks, and the changing tides of time. Lighthouse keepers throughout history have reported strange noises during long nights of solitude, the faint pounding of hooves circling the base of the tower, soft neighs that echo from the dunes, and the sensation of a cold breeze that carries the scent of salt and wild horses. Some keepers have claimed to see the ghostly outlines of horses standing just beyond the light's reach, their forms barely visible in the fog. One particularly haunting account comes from a keeper who served in the early 1900s. On a night when a heavy fog enveloped the island, he reported hearing the unmistakable sound of horses galloping across the sand, stepping outside into the cold air. He saw several ghostly figures racing along the beach horses with no riders, their hooves kicking up no sand, their shadows flickering like spirits caught between worlds. The horses disappeared as suddenly as they had appeared, leaving the keeper shaken and silent for days. He later confided that the sounds returned every stormy night thereafter, as if the horses were endlessly reenacting their final desperate flight. Paranormal investigators have also been drawn to Augustine Island, intrigued by the reports of ghostly horses and other unexplained phenomena. Audio recordings made near the lighthouse during foggy nights have captured the rhythmic pounding of hooves, distant but distinct, along with low, haunting neighs that defy natural explanation. Thermal cameras have detected fleeting heat signatures moving rapidly over the dunes, vanishing before they can be fully recorded. Some have suggested the island acts as a kind of spiritual crossroads, where the boundary between the living and the dead is thin, allowing restless souls to cross. Beyond the ghostly equine legends, Augustine Island is steeped in maritime history. The waters off the coast have claimed numerous ships over the centuries, earning the region a reputation as a perilous stretch of sea. Shipwreck survivors and sailors lost to storms are also said to haunt the island, their spirits mingling with the wild horses and adding to the mysterious atmosphere. Stories tell of phantom ships glimpsed offshore, ghostly figures appearing on the beaches, and flickering lights dancing along the shorelines. A fragment of the island's haunted past. The island's natural beauty and eerie history combine to create a place of powerful contrasts. By day, the sun illuminates pristine beaches, wild ponies graze peacefully, and families explore nature trails. But as dusk falls, the landscape transforms. The wind carries a chill, the shadows grow longer, and the sounds of neighing and hoofbeats begin to stir in the distance. For those who remain after dark, the island becomes a place where the veil between worlds thins, and the echoes of the past ride once more across the dunes. If you find yourself at Augustine Lighthouse on a foggy night, listen closely. Beyond the crash of waves and rustle of grasses, you may hear the distant pounding of hoofs, a rhythmic, haunting cadence that seems to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. You may catch the faint sound of neighing, wild and sorrowful, carried on the salty breeze, and if you are fortunate or unfortunate enough to glimpse them, you might see the ghostly silhouettes of horses racing across the dunes, free and untamed even in death. These are the phantom horses of a forever bound to the island's wild spirit and haunted shores. Their cries a haunting reminder of lives lost, nature's fierce beauty, and the enduring mysteries of the sea. The Seguin Island Lighthouse stands quietly on the Delaware coast. Its stark white tower, a solitary sentinel against the vast expanse of sky and sea. Built in 1858, it has long served as a guide for ships navigating the treacherous waters of the Delaware Bay and Atlantic Ocean. But beyond its practical purpose, Seguin Island Lighthouse harbors a chilling secret, one that has gripped locals and visitors alike with eerie fascination for generations. It is the story of a headless, ghostly figure seen wandering near the old keeper's quarters, a haunting presence that has become an enduring legend in the quiet coastal community. The lighthouse's history is steeped in tales of duty, hardship, and tragedy. In the mid-19th century, life as a lighthouse keeper was demanding and isolating. Keepers were charged with the continuous upkeep of the lantern, maintaining the flame that guided ships safely through storms and darkness. Their families often lived on site in small, simple quarters, enduring the harsh coastal weather and solitude. It was in these quarters that many strange occurrences were reported: unexplained noises, cold spots, and sightings that defied rational explanation. The most unsettling of these tales centers on the appearance of a headless figure near the keeper's quarters. Witnesses describe a tall, imposing form dressed in a heavy coat and hat typical of 19th century lighthouse keepers. But with one horrifying detail: the figure is completely without a head. This spectral apparition is said to drift silently along the beach or the grassy dunes surrounding the lighthouse, its movements slow and deliberate, as if searching for something lost. Stories of the headless ghost date back over a century, with numerous sightings reported by fishermen, visitors, and even the lighthouse's own staff. One of the earliest recorded encounters comes from a keeper's family member who, late one evening, spotted the figure standing near the quarters under the pale moonlight. Frozen with fear, she watched as the apparition slowly turned toward the shore, before vanishing into the mist. Over the years, similar reports have emerged: figures glimpsed out of the corner of the eye, shadows moving against the wind, and a haunting silence that falls whenever the ghost is near. Locals have offered various theories to explain the ghost's identity and tragic fate. One popular belief is that the headless figure is the restless spirit of a former keeper who met a violent end. According to legend, the keeper was involved in a tragic accident, possibly a fall from the tower or an altercation that ended in his decapitation. Others speculate that he was a victim of a brutal storm or a shipwreck, his head lost to the merciless sea. Whatever the truth, the ghost's headlessness is said to symbolize an unsettled soul, forever seeking closure that can never be found. The phenomenon extends beyond mere sightings. Visitors to the lighthouse have reported chilling sensations near the keeper's quarters: sudden drops in temperature, a heavy stillness in the air, and the feeling of being watched. Some claim to hear faint footsteps pacing the grounds or soft whispers carried on the breeze, unintelligible yet filled with sorrow. Equipment used by paranormal investigators has picked up unexplained electromagnetic disturbances near the site, and audio recordings have captured faint moans and what some interpret as anguished cries. Despite the eerie tales, the Seguin Island Lighthouse remains a cherished landmark, drawing tourists who come to explore its historic charm and coastal beauty. By day, the lighthouse is a place of peaceful reflection, where visitors climb the steps to gaze out over the shimmering bay and sandy beaches. But as dusk falls and shadows deepen, the atmosphere shifts. The lighthouse seems to hold its breath, the wind carrying whispers of the past. And the headless keeper's ghost is said to emerge once more, wandering the sands in eternal search. One of the most famous modern encounters occurred during a full moon night, when a group of paranormal investigators camped near the lighthouse. Equipped with cameras, voice recorders, and sensors, they hoped to capture evidence of the supernatural. As midnight approached, the temperature plummeted unexpectedly, and their instruments began to flicker erratically. Suddenly, the team reported seeing a towering figure without a head moving silently across the dunes, its presence overwhelming and chilling. Attempts to follow the apparition proved futile, as it disappeared into the fog as mysteriously as it had appeared. This encounter reignited interest in the lighthouse's ghostly reputation, drawing curiosity seekers eager to experience the haunting firsthand. Local tour guides recount the stories with a mix of reverence and excitement, cautioning visitors to respect the restless spirit. They say the headless figure is not malevolent, but rather a lost soul, bound to the lighthouse and its keeper's quarters, forever tied to the place where his life and, perhaps his sanity ended, abruptly. The Seguin Island Lighthouse, with its blend of history and haunting, stands as a testament to the enduring power of legends. It reminds us that beneath the calm surface of familiar places lie stories that reach back through time, shaped by human tragedy and mystery. The headless ghost near the keeper's quarters is more than a spectral figure. It is a symbol of unresolved grief and the thin veil between the living and the dead. For those who venture to Seguin Island after dark, the lighthouse offers more than a view. It offers a glimpse into the unknown. If you walk quietly near the keeper's quarters, listen carefully to the wind, and watch the dunes where the wild grass sways, you may sense a presence, a silent guardian with no face, moving through the night in eternal vigil. Whether the ghost is a reminder of a life lost too soon or a warning from the past, it remains part of the island's soul, a haunting echo that lingers long after the light has faded. Barnegat Lighthouse, standing tall on the northern tip of Long Beach Island in New Jersey, has long been a guiding light for sailors braving the turbulent waters of Barnegat Inlet and the Atlantic Ocean beyond. Since its completion in 1859, the lighthouse has served as a beacon of safety and hope. Its powerful light, cutting through thick fog and stormy nights to warn mariners of dangerous shoals and shifting sands. Yet alongside its practical purpose, the lighthouse has earned a reputation wrapped in mystery and folklore. Fueled by chilling reports from fishermen and locals who speak of spectral voices that seem to warn of storms before they arrive. The waters surrounding Barnegat Inlet are notorious for their unpredictability. The meeting of ocean currents, shifting sandbars, and sudden weather changes has led to countless shipwrecks over the centuries. The lighthouse was built precisely to combat this danger. Its towering height and bright lights guiding vessels safely through the hazardous channel. But even with this sentinel watching over them, mariners still face the sea's capricious nature. For generations, fishermen who set out before dawn or linger late into the evening have shared stories of strange voices carried on the wind near the lighthouse, voices that are not human but seem deeply familiar and urgent. These ethereal whispers often rise just before the weather turns foul, warning of storms long before the first dark clouds gather or the wind picks up. The phenomenon has been reported many times, particularly during the fall and winter months when storms strike suddenly. Fishermen say that as they work near the inlet or dock their boats, they hear faint voices murmuring through the air. Some describe the voices as urgent, sometimes barely audible, but always unmistakably clear in their intent. Warnings of danger ahead. The voices sometimes call out phrases like storm coming, turn back, or danger near, urging sailors to heed the warnings and take shelter. These voices are said to echo across the water and along the shoreline, often carrying for miles, cutting through the roar of waves and howling wind. Despite the sometimes harsh conditions, those who hear the voices say they come with a strange calmness, a presence that demands respect and attention. One of the most famous accounts comes from an experienced fisherman who had been navigating Barnegat's waters for decades. On a clear autumn morning, while preparing his boat near the lighthouse, he heard the unmistakable sound of voices rising from the direction of the tower. At first, he thought it was other fishermen or dock workers, but as he strained to listen, the words became chillingly clear. Storm, storm, turn back now. Moments later, the sky darkened abruptly, and a sudden squall swept across the inlet, forcing him to seek shelter. He credits the ghostly warning with saving his life and the lives of his crew. Local lighthouse keepers and park rangers have also reported hearing mysterious voices within the tower itself. Some say that during quiet nights, when the wind is low, they can hear whispers threading through the stairwell and lantern room, like voices carried from a distant past. These sounds are never threatening, but often seem to convey a sense of urgency or a call to attention. Paranormal researchers visiting Barnegat Lighthouse have documented audio anomalies and unexplained noises during stormy weather. EVP recordings have captured faint, indistinct voices uttering words that sound like warnings or instructions. Investigators have also noted sudden drops in temperature near the lighthouse base and lantern room, adding to the eerie atmosphere. Cameras have occasionally recorded shadowy figures moving near the tower, though these images remain inconclusive. Historians suggest the voices may be connected to the many lives lost in the waters around Barnegat Inlet. Over the centuries, countless sailors, fishermen, and ship captains have perished in storms or wrecks near the lighthouse. Some believe their spirits linger still, watching over the waters. They once sailed and using the lighthouse as a beacon not just of light but of caution from beyond the grave. Others speculate that the voices could belong to former lighthouse keepers, men who dedicated their lives to safeguarding mariners, and who now continue their watch in spectral form. The idea of the lighthouse as a spiritual guardian resonates with many locals, who see the voices as a gift, a connection between the living and the lost, guiding the living away from peril. The lighthouse itself stands as a powerful symbol in this story, a structure built to protect and warn. Its light, a tangible safeguard against the ocean's dangers. Yet, it is also a threshold between worlds, where the natural and supernatural seem to overlap. At night, when the lighthouse beam sweeps over the dark waters, and the wind carries the scent of salt and impending rain, the barrier between past and present feels thin. Visitors to Barnegat Lighthouse often report a sense of awe mingled with unease. The area's beauty contrasts sharply with the stories of tragedy and haunting, creating a complex atmosphere of reverence and mystery. Walking the grounds, one can almost imagine the whispered voices riding the sea breeze, urging caution, reminding all who venture out of the unseen dangers beneath the waves. Despite or perhaps because of the ghostly tales, Barnegat Lighthouse remains a cherished landmark. It draws thousands of visitors each year who come to climb its spiral stairs, explore the museum, and soak in the panoramic views of the Jersey Shore. For many, the legends add a layer of intrigue and connection to the past, transforming a historic beacon into a living story of survival, loss, and supernatural guardianship. If you visit Barnegat Lighthouse on a quiet day before a storm, stand close to the tower and listen carefully. You might catch the faintest murmur of voices carried by the wind, soft, urgent warning. Whether they are the echoes of long-lost sailors, the watchful keepers who never left, or simply the whisper of the sea itself. These spectral voices remind us that even in the vast openness of ocean and sky, there are unseen watchers guarding those who sail beneath the lighthouse's steadfast light. Isolated and burdened by duty, their presence seems to linger still. Witnesses describe seeing translucent figures in blue uniforms atop the catwalk, gazing endlessly toward the horizon. Adding to the mystery are stories of doomed sailors whose ships met disaster in the surrounding waters. Their spirits are said to return, drawn to the lighthouse's beacon. Visitors often feel sudden cold spots or sense unseen eyes watching them. At night, the beam casts eerie shadows that seem alive, believed by some to be the restless souls of those lost at sea. One chilling tale involves Captain John, a former keeper who became consumed by guilt after a storm extinguished a light. His apparition is said to wander the premises, accompanied by the faint smell of oil and the sound of boots climbing the spiral staircase. Its ghosts, whether revolutionary soldiers, Civil War sentries, or lost sailors, are poignant reminders of sacrifices made and the enduring weight of history. Fire Island Lighthouse, perched on the shifting sands of Fire Island, New York, has stood as a guiding beacon since its construction in 1826. Its towering red and white stripes rise boldly against the Atlantic skyline, a symbol of safety for countless mariners navigating the treacherous waters off Long Island's southern shore. While its light has saved many lives over nearly 2 centuries, the lighthouse also holds stories far more mysterious. Tales of ghostly keepers who still pace its spiral stairs, their shadows stretching long across the stone walls, whispering secrets of a bygone era. The history of the Fire Island Lighthouse is deeply intertwined with the men who tended its flame. In the 19th and early 20th centuries, lighthouse keepers lived isolated lives, cut off from the mainland by miles of shifting dunes and restless sea. Their days were marked by relentless maintenance, cleaning the massive Fresnel lens, hauling heavy oil to fuel the lamp, and climbing the narrow stairs countless times in storms and calm alike. These keepers bore the weight of responsibility for guiding ships through perilous waters where a single misstep could mean disaster. Over the decades, many keepers formed close bonds with the lighthouse itself, their lives entwined with its very structure. They were men of routine and resilience, often serving for decades despite the loneliness and hardships. Some faced tragedy storms that claimed vessels, sudden illnesses, and the crushing isolation of a remote post. It is said that their devotion and the trials they endured have left an indelible mark on the lighthouse's spirit. Visitors and staff at Fire Island Lighthouse have long reported strange occurrences that defy explanation. Most commonly, footsteps echo along the spiral staircase, heavy, steady, and unmistakably human. Yet, when they look, no one is there. Some say these are the footsteps of former keepers, forever bound to their watch, endlessly pacing the stairs as if performing their duties long after death. The sounds often grow louder during stormy nights, as if the spirits are drawn out by the fury of the sea they once braved. In addition to the footsteps, shadows are frequently seen flickering on the curved walls of the stairwell. Witnesses describe elongated, sometimes indistinct silhouettes that move just beyond the edge of vision. These shadowy figures often appear at the top of the stairs or near the lantern room, pausing to gaze out across the water before vanishing into the ether. Some visitors have felt the chilling sensation of a presence brushing past them, a fleeting coldness that sends a shiver down the spine. One of the most chilling tales involves a keeper from the late 1800s who reportedly died while on duty. According to legend, he had been climbing the spiral stairs during a violent storm when a sudden illness overtook him. He collapsed near the lantern room, never to rise again. Since that time, many claim to hear his footsteps ascending the stairs at night, as if he is still making his rounds, ensuring the light never falters. Some say his shadow lingers near the top of the tower, a silent guardian watching over the coastline. Paranormal investigations have captured compelling evidence of these supernatural phenomena. Audio recordings have picked up unexplained footstep sounds and distant whispers, while thermal cameras reveal sudden cold spots where no draft exists. Night vision footage often shows fleeting shadows moving swiftly through the stairwell, disappearing when illuminated. Electromagnetic field (EMF) detectors frequently spike near the lantern room during storms, suggesting an unseen energy that defies scientific explanation. Beyond the haunting footsteps and shadows, there are reports of objects moving on their own, tools left on tables rearranged, doors opening and closing without cause, and lights flickering erratically. Some lighthouse guides recount sudden sensations of being watched or followed, especially when alone in the tower after dark. The air can grow inexplicably heavy, thick with an energy that seems to pulse with memories long past. The island itself has a storied past, with shipwrecks and maritime tragedies adding layers to the lighthouse's mystique. Many sailors lost at sea are believed to have spirits connected to the lighthouse, their souls tied to the beacon that once guided them. The combination of the lighthouse keeper's devotion and the ocean's unforgiving nature creates an atmosphere ripe for spectral phenomena. Local lore holds that the keeper's ghosts are not malevolent but rather protective. They continue their watch to ensure that no ship falls victim to the same fate that befell so many before. This belief lends a solemn dignity to the haunting Z's, our spirits bound by duty and honor, caught between worlds but resolute in their purpose. Today, Fire Island Lighthouse is a cherished historical site, attracting visitors eager to climb its 182 steps and soak in panoramic views of the Atlantic. By day, it is a place of beauty and history, where the light still shines as a testament to human perseverance. But by night, the atmosphere transforms. The lighthouse becomes a realm where past and present blur, where the echoes of footsteps and stretching shadows remind us that some watches never end. For those brave enough to visit after dusk, standing within the spiraling walls of Fire Island Lighthouse offers more than a glimpse of the ocean's vastness. It offers a connection to the unseen, to the keepers who gave their lives in service and whose spirits linger still. Listen closely to the faint tapping on the stairs, watch the shifting shadows, and feel the cold breath of history brushing past. Here, in this beacon on the shore, the past lives on, not just in stories and stone, but in the very air that moves with the restless footsteps of those who keep the light alive. Montauk Point Lighthouse, standing at the easternmost tip of Long Island, New York, has been a steadfast beacon guiding mariners through treacherous waters since its completion in 1796. Its towering white facade and powerful light have warned countless ships of the rocky shoreline and shifting shoals that make this area one of the most perilous stretches along the Atlantic coast. While the lighthouse is celebrated for its historic significance and its role in maritime safety, it is also steeped in eerie legends, most notably tales of ghostly shipwrecked sailors who are said to roam the grounds on foggy nights, knocking on doors and seeking refuge from the relentless sea. Montauk Point has long been a crucial waypoint for sailors navigating the vast and often unpredictable Atlantic Ocean. The convergence of currents, frequent fog, and sudden storms have made the waters around Montauk especially dangerous. Over the centuries, numerous ships have met their fate here, dashed against the rocks or lost to the churning surf. Many lives were claimed, and the souls of those lost are said to have never truly left the shores. Local folklore tells of these restless spirits returning during thick fogs, their presence announced by faint but persistent knocks on the doors of the lighthouse keeper's quarters and nearby buildings. Witnesses describe hearing the rhythmic tapping as if someone or something is desperate for help, attempting to gain entry or warn those inside of impending danger. The sound often arrives when the fog is densest, cloaking the landscape in an eerie silence broken only by these spectral knocks. Visitors and lighthouse staff alike have reported unnerving experiences connected to these ghostly visitors. Several recount nights when they heard the knocking clearly, yet found no one at the door when they answered. Doors that had been securely latched were found slightly ajar, and footsteps echoed faintly outside the windows without visible origin. The knocking can be insistent, lasting minutes or sometimes recurring sporadically throughout the night, leaving those awake both disturbed and fascinated. One particularly chilling account comes from a lighthouse guide who spent several nights in the keeper's quarters during a foggy fall. On one such night, she was awakened by a soft, deliberate knocking on the door. Opening it cautiously, she found nothing but thick, swirling mist and an overwhelming sense of sorrow hanging in the air. The knocks returned twice more, before fading into the sounds of the distant waves crashing against the shore. The guide later learned that the sound coincided with the anniversary of a tragic shipwreck nearby, when many sailors lost their lives in a sudden storm. The spirits are often described as sorrowful rather than malevolent. They are believed to be those same shipwrecked sailors who never made it home, trapped between worlds and seeking comfort or closure. Some local legends hold that these ghostly mariners are trying to warn the lighthouse keepers of approaching storms or dangers at sea, continuing their watch from beyond the grave in the hope that others might avoid their tragic fate. Beyond the knocking, other unexplained phenomena have been reported. Visitors speak of cold spots that chill the air suddenly and inexplicably, shadows moving in the peripheral vision, and the occasional glimpse of ghostly figures standing silently near the lighthouse base or on the surrounding cliffs. These apparitions often appear dressed in tattered seafaring clothes from centuries past, their faces obscured by fog or darkness. Paranormal investigators drawn to Montauk Point Lighthouse have recorded compelling evidence supporting these tales. Audio recordings have captured the mysterious knocks and faint voices pleading for help. Thermal imaging devices have detected sudden drops in temperature in empty rooms, and night vision cameras have documented shadowy movements in areas devoid of any physical explanation. Electromagnetic field (EMF) detectors often spike unpredictably near the keeper's quarters during foggy weather, suggesting the presence of an unseen energy force. The lighthouse's long history is closely tied to maritime tragedies. One of the most infamous incidents was the wreck of the British warship HMS Culloden in 1781, which ran aground not far from Montauk Point. Many crew members drowned, their bodies lost to the sea. Local lore claims their spirits haunt the lighthouse area, still searching for a way back to shore. Stories like this have added layers of mystery and sorrow to the lighthouse's haunted reputation. The keepers who served at Montauk Point have historically spoken of a profound connection to the sea and its spirits. Many experienced inexplicable occurrences and explained sounds, eerie sensations, and the feeling of being watched. Some recorded strange dreams or visions of drowning sailors pleading for rescue. The loneliness and isolation of the keeper's role may have heightened their sensitivity to these otherworldly presences. But the consistency of reports across generations suggests something beyond mere imagination. Despite the chilling stories, Montauk Point Lighthouse remains a beloved historical site and a symbol of perseverance and hope. Tourists visit year-round to climb its steps, explore the museum, and absorb the stunning views of the Atlantic coastline. The lighthouse's light continues to shine as a beacon of safety, just as it has for more than 2 centuries. Yet, for those who visit after dark, especially when the fog rolls in thick off, the spirits of the shipwrecked sailors, bound to Montauk Point by tragedy, seem to continue their vigil, silent guardians, warning the living to respect the power of the ocean and the fragility of life. Montauk Point Lighthouse is more than a historical monument. It is a crossroads where past and present meet, where the stories of the lost sail on the wind, and where the knocking on the door is a reminder that some spirits never truly find rest. In the fog and darkness, the lighthouse keeps its eternal watch, its light piercing the night and its ghostly visitors still knocking, hoping to be heard. Stratford Point Lighthouse, perched on the rocky shore of Connecticut's Long Island Sound, has stood as a steadfast sentinel since it was first built in 1822. Over the centuries, its glowing beacon has guided countless vessels safely through the sometimes treacherous waters near Stratford, cutting through fog, storm, and darkness alike. But beneath its historic charm lies a haunting presence that locals and visitors alike have whispered about for generations. The ghostly figure of a lighthouse keeper who, long after his time, is said to still wander the grounds, humming melancholic sea shanties that drift on the night wind. The lighthouse's history is woven tightly with the lives of those who tended its light. In the 19th century, lighthouse keepers were more than caretakers. They were guardians of life and safety, often isolated in their remote posts, battling storms and loneliness to keep the lamp burning bright. Stratford Point Lighthouse was no exception. Keepers lived on site in modest quarters, their days and nights dominated by the responsibility of maintaining the light and ensuring safe passage for ships navigating the Sound. Among the many keepers who served here, one figure stands out in local lore: keeper, known for his dedication, resilience, and a hauntingly beautiful voice. It is said that he would often sing sea shanties, the traditional work songs of sailors, to pass the long, lonely hours. His voice, carrying over the crashing waves and rocky shore, was a source of comfort to passing sailors and a reflection of his deep connection to the sea. Tragedy struck one winter night when a fierce storm swept through the area. The keeper, determined to keep the light burning despite the raging tempest, was caught off guard by the icy winds and treacherous conditions. He was never seen alive again. The official records simply note that he disappeared without a trace, swallowed by the storm or lost at sea. but locals believe his spirit never left Stratford Point. Since then, many have reported hearing the faint, haunting sound of a man humming sea shanties carried by the night wind near the lighthouse. These melodies are often described as sorrowful, yet strangely soothing, echoing over the water with an eerie beauty. The songs seem to rise particularly during stormy or foggy nights, when the air is thick with mist and the crashing surf roars against the rocks. Those living nearby recall nights when the singing would drift through open windows or down quiet streets, stopping just short of the lighthouse itself. Some say they have seen a faint silhouette pacing the grounds, a solitary figure clad in the weathered coat of a 19th-century keeper, moving slowly and deliberately as if still tending his eternal post. Others have felt a sudden chill or the sensation of a gentle breath passing close by, as if the ghostly keeper is nearby, watching and humming his songs to the sea. Visitors to the lighthouse often feel an inexplicable atmosphere, an invisible presence that seems both protective and mournful. Staff members recount instances of hearing soft humming while alone in the lighthouse tower late at night, and the feeling of being accompanied even when no one else is present. On occasion, the faint scent of salt water and old tobacco, said to be the keeper's favorite, fills the air unexpectedly. Paranormal researchers who have explored Stratford Point Lighthouse have recorded unusual phenomena. Audio devices have captured low, melodic hums and distant voices resembling old sea shanties. Thermal cameras reveal sudden cold spots near the keeper's quarters and along the stairway. Electromagnetic sensors frequently detect spikes during windy nights, aligning with the reported times of the ghostly humming. Video equipment has occasionally caught flickering shadows moving against the lighthouse's interior walls, shadows that vanish when illuminated. The history of the lighthouse enriches these tales. Stratford Point has long been a site of maritime importance, with countless ships passing close to its shores. The turbulent waters have claimed many vessels, and stories of shipwrecks and loss have become part of the region's fabric. The ghostly humming is often interpreted as a bridge between past and present, the keeper's spirit continuing to comfort sailors and warn travelers of impending storms, just as he did in life. Locals treasured the legend as part of their cultural heritage. It is not a story of fear, but of respect and remembrance, a testament to the sacrifices made by those who kept the light burning through darkness and danger. Community events occasionally feature traditional sea shanty singing in honor of the ghostly keeper, celebrating the enduring bond between the lighthouse, the sea, and those who serve both. The ghostly humming at Stratford Point Lighthouse reminds us of the deep human connection to the ocean and the lives intertwined with its unpredictable moods. It speaks of solitude and duty, of loss and love for the sea, echoing through time like the waves themselves. For those who hear it carried on the night wind, it is a haunting melody that transcends death. A spectral song of a keeper still guarding his post, guiding ships safely home from beyond the veil. On stormy nights, when the wind howls and the waves pound the shore. If you stand quietly near Stratford Point Lighthouse, you may hear the faint, mournful hum of sea shanties weaving through the gusts. It is the ghostly keeper's voice, soft, enduring, and eternal, singing across the centuries. A lullaby to the restless sea, and a reminder that some guardians never leave their watch. Portland Headlight, standing proudly on the rocky promontory of Cape Elizabeth, Maine, is one of the oldest and most iconic lighthouses in the United States. Since its completion in 1791, this towering beacon has guided countless ships safely through the treacherous waters of Casco Bay and the Atlantic Ocean beyond. Its whitewashed walls and distinctive black lantern have become a symbol of Maine's rugged coastline, a testament to the resilience and vigilance required to navigate these often unforgiving seas. Yet beneath its serene beauty lies a darker legacy, one of tragedy, loss, and restless spirits whose cries are said to echo through the crashing waves. The rocky shores near Portland Headlight have claimed many ships over the centuries. Hidden reefs, sudden storms, and fierce currents have made this stretch of coastline perilous for mariners. Even with the lighthouse's vigilant glow cutting through fog and darkness, shipwrecks are a grim part of the area's history, and the stories of those lost at sea have become entwined with the lighthouse itself. creating a haunting backdrop to its role as a guardian of sailors. Locals and visitors alike have long spoken of eerie sounds carried on the wind, ghostly cries and wails that rise above the roar of the surf. These are said to be the anguished voices of shipwreck victims, forever trapped between the sea and shore, their sorrow mingling with the ocean's eternal song. On stormy nights, when the wind howls and waves batter the cliffs, the cries grow louder, chilling the bones of anyone who dares to listen. One of the most famous shipwrecks near Portland Head Light is that of the Anglo-Saxon, a British bark that ran aground in 1863 during a fierce winter storm. The vessel was battered by massive waves, and despite desperate efforts, many of the crew perished in the freezing waters. Local lore says that on stormy anniversaries, their mournful cries can still be heard, carried on the wind, a sorrowful reminder of lives lost far from home. Witnesses often describe hearing these cries while walking along the rocky shore or standing near the lighthouse at night. The sounds are not constant, but come and go like distant echoes, sometimes resembling the desperate calls for help, other times like the wailing lament of those who perished. The emotional weight of these sounds is palpable, evoking feelings of sadness, empathy, and an unshakable sense of the sea's merciless power. In addition to auditory phenomena, many have reported seeing fleeting apparitions near the lighthouse and surrounding cliffs. Some claim to have glimpsed ghostly figures silhouetted against the stormy sky, sailors in period clothing, faces pale and etched with despair, their forms dissolving into mist and sea spray. Others have felt sudden chills or the sensation of being watched, especially during stormy weather or thick fog. Lighthouse keepers and staff have their own stories. Many have felt an unexplainable presence within the tower itself, a shadow moving just beyond sight, a cold breath on the back of the neck, or the distant sound of footsteps on the spiral staircase when no one else is around. Some have reported hearing whispered voices, offering warnings or recounting the perils of the sea. The atmosphere within Portland Head Light often shifts unpredictably, thickening with an energy that some interpret as the lingering spirits of those who depended on the lighthouse's guiding light. Paranormal investigators have been drawn to Portland Head Light to explore these phenomena. Audio recordings have captured faint cries and indistinct whispers, sometimes punctuated by the sound of crashing waves and howling wind. Thermal imaging has revealed cold spots in empty rooms, particularly near the lantern room and keeper's quarters. EMF meters have registered spikes during storms, aligning with eyewitness accounts of ghostly activity. Photographs taken at night have occasionally shown orbs of light and shadowy figures that disappear when illuminated. The lighthouse itself holds a wealth of history that enriches the ghost stories. Commissioned by George Washington, Portland Head Light was built to protect a burgeoning nation's vital shipping routes. Over the centuries, it has witnessed the evolution of maritime technology, wars, economic booms, and the ongoing struggle between man and the sea. The spirits said to haunt its walls represent the many lives entwined with these waters, the sailors who braved storms, the families who awaited their return, and those who never made it home. Despite the spectral presence, Portland Head Light remains a place of hope and resilience. Its light continues to shine nightly, a steadfast symbol of safety amid the storm. Visitors come not only to admire its historic beauty, but also to reflect on the power of the sea and the stories it holds. The cries that echo through the waves serve as a solemn reminder of nature's might and the enduring human spirit that confronts it. For those standing on the cliffs near Portland Head Light on a stormy night, listening to the ocean's roar, it is possible to imagine the echoes of those long-lost sailors carried on the wind. Their cries blend with the sound of crashing waves, creating a haunting chorus that bridges past and present. These voices are more than just ghostly whispers. They are a testament to lives touched by tragedy and a reminder of the lighthouse's role as a guardian of the vulnerable. In the end, Portland Head Light is more than just a lighthouse. It is a monument to human endurance, a beacon that has guided countless souls through darkness and danger. Its haunted legacy speaks of the sea's unforgiving nature and the spirits who remain bound to its shores. The cries of shipwrecked victims are woven into the very fabric of this place, echoing through the waves, forever part of the lighthouse's enduring story. New London Ledge Lighthouse, standing isolated on a rocky reef in Long Island Sound, Connecticut, is a beacon steeped in history and haunted by tragedy. Constructed in 1909, this lighthouse has endured harsh storms, fierce tides, and the relentless passage of time, though its light has guided mariners safely for over a century. The lighthouse is most notorious for the ghost of a former keeper named Ernie, an enigmatic figure whose tragic end and mischievous spirit continue to unsettle visitors to this day. Ernest Ernie Johnson was the lighthouse keeper during the mid-20th century, a man known for his dedication to the light and a somewhat quirky personality. Those who knew him described him as solitary but devoted, often seen tending the lamp with care and precision, his presence as constant as the light he maintained. Yet beneath his stoic exterior lay a troubled soul. The isolation of the lighthouse, the unforgiving nature of the sea, and the weight of responsibility took their toll on Ernie, whose mental health gradually deteriorated. On a bleak day in the early 1960s, Ernie's story took a heartbreaking turn. Overwhelmed by despair, he climbed to the top of the lighthouse and, in a tragic moment, leaped from the gallery onto the jagged rocks below. Despite desperate rescue attempts, he was lost to the sea. His body never fully recovered. His death shocked the community and cast a somber shadow over the lighthouse, forever changing its history. Since that day, reports of supernatural activity have surrounded New London Ledge Lighthouse. Visitors and workers who have spent time at the lighthouse tell stories of strange happenings, objects moving without explanation, tools disappearing and reappearing in odd places, and lights flickering mysteriously. Many believe these are the tricks of Ernie's restless spirit, a mischievous presence unwilling to rest and still bound to his old post. One of the most common experiences reported involves sudden cold spots that seem to follow visitors as they explore the lighthouse. As cramped rooms and narrow staircases, people have felt invisible hands brushing past them or gently tugging at their clothing. Some have heard footsteps echoing along the spiral staircase when no one else is there. Others have sensed a playful but eerie presence lurking just out of sight, as if Ernie is watching and interacting with those who enter his domain. Ernie's sense of humor, dark yet strangely endearing, is said to manifest in subtle ways. Visitors sometimes find the lighthouse's door locked tight when it should be open, only to discover it mysteriously unlocked moments later. Flashlights flicker on and off without cause, and radios or other electronics occasionally switch channels or turn off unexpectedly. Some people report hearing faint laughter or whispered comments carried on the wind, as if Ernie is making his presence known in a ghostly game of hide-and-seek. Despite the eerie atmosphere, many who encounter Ernie's spirit say he is not malicious. Instead, his antics feel more like a restless soul trying to communicate, or perhaps simply passing the time in his eternal vigil. Some visitors even find themselves amused by the strange happenings, sensing a quirky personality behind the paranormal events rather than something truly sinister. Paranormal investigators have visited New London Ledge Lighthouse numerous times, capturing evidence that seems to confirm the ghostly tales. Electronic voice phenomena, EVP recordings have picked up unexplained whispers and faint chuckles. Thermal imaging cameras often detect sudden cold spots and shadowy figures near the top of the lighthouse. Electromagnetic field, EMF meters, frequently spike inexplicably, particularly near the lantern room and keeper's quarters. Video footage has recorded fleeting orbs of light and shadowy shapes that disappear upon closer inspection. The lighthouse's history adds weight to the stories. Built to replace an earlier lightship marking the dangerous reef, New London Ledge Lighthouse is located in a place both isolated and exposed. The solitude required of its keepers was profound, demanding not just skill, but immense mental strength. Ernie's fate is a tragic reminder of the toll such isolation can take, and his lingering presence seems to symbolize the enduring bond between keeper and lighthouse. Those who work or visit often develop a deep respect for the lighthouse and its spectral guardian. The stories of Ernie's playful tricks, are shared with a mix of fascination and caution. Tour guides often recount his legend to visitors, emphasizing the importance of remembering those who dedicated their lives to the light both in life and beyond. New London Ledge Lighthouse continues to operate today, its light piercing through fog and darkness, guiding ships safely past the perilous reef. But for those who linger after hours or explore its hidden corners, there is a palpable sense of the past reaching into the present. The laughter, the footsteps, the sudden chills, they are reminders that Ernie's spirit remains entwined with the lighthouse, watching, playing, and forever tending the light. For those brave enough to spend a night at New London Ledge Lighthouse, the experience is unforgettable. The isolation of the rocky reef, the crashing waves below, and the historic beacon overhead create an atmosphere charged with history and mystery. When the wind howls through the lighthouse's crevices and the lights flicker inexplicably, it's easy to believe that Ernie is nearby, humming an old tune, ready to play another trick or offer a ghostly greeting. In the end, New London Ledge Lighthouse is more than a navigational aid. It is a monument to human endurance and the complex relationship between man and sea. Ernie's ghostly presence serves as a poignant reminder of the sacrifices made by those who kept the light burning through storms and solitude. His playful hauntings keep the spirit of the lighthouse alive, blending history and legend into a living tale that continues to captivate and chill those who visit. The story of Ernie at New London Ledge Lighthouse is a testament to the power of place and memory. It shows how the echoes of the past can linger, shaping the present in subtle and unexpected ways. For every light that shines out across the dark waters, there is a story behind it, sometimes joyful, sometimes tragic, but always unforgettable. And at New London Ledge, the light shines on, watched over by a keeper who never truly left. Pemaquid Point Lighthouse, perched high on the rugged coastline of Bristol, Maine, is one of the most photographed and beloved lighthouses in New England. Its striking white tower and attached keeper's house stand as a proud sentinel overlooking the restless Atlantic Ocean, a beacon of safety for sailors navigating the rocky shoals below. Built in 1827 and rebuilt in 1835, this lighthouse has weathered nearly 2 centuries of storms, solitude, and silent vigilance. But among its breathtaking views and historic charm lies a haunting mystery, a spectral woman in white who appears in the lantern room, gazing out to sea before fading into nothingness. The legend of the woman in white has been passed down for generations, whispered among locals and shared with curious visitors who climb the spiral staircase to the lantern room. She's described as graceful and ethereal, dressed in flowing white garments that shimmer faintly in the moonlight. Her presence is most often reported during misty evenings or stormy nights, when the crashing surf and howling wind seem to stir something deep within the stones of the old lighthouse. Witnesses say the woman stands silently, her back often turned, her face hidden as she looks out toward the endless expanse of ocean. Some claim she lifts her hand as if reaching for something, or someone lost beyond the horizon. Within moments, she vanishes without a sound, leaving behind only a lingering chill and an overwhelming sense of sorrow. Who is this mysterious apparition? The most enduring theory ties her to a tragic love story from the 19th century. Local lore tells of a young woman whose was a sailor, a man devoted to the sea and to her. Before leaving on a long voyage, he promised to return and marry her beneath the cliffs near Pemaquid Point. She waited faithfully, watching the horizon for any sign of his ship, but he never returned. Some say his vessel was claimed by a violent storm, others that he perished in a distant port. Heartbroken and unable to move on, the woman wandered the cliffs for years, her life consumed by grief until the day she too vanished, perhaps lost to the sea that had taken her love. It is believed her spirit remains bound to the lighthouse, drawn to the lantern room where the light reaches out across the ocean, as if guiding him home even in death. The apparition has been seen so frequently that even seasoned lighthouse staff speak of her with a mix of reverence and unease. Guides recount stories of visitors who suddenly freeze while climbing the tower, their eyes fixed on the lantern room, above where a white figure stands only for it to disappear as they ascend. The keepers of Pemaquid Point Lighthouse have long reported strange occurrences attributed to the woman in white. Doors that were firmly shut swing open on their own. Windows rattle violently in calm weather. At times, a soft, melodic humming drifts through the empty rooms like a lullaby carried on the wind. Some keepers have described waking in the middle of the night to the sensation of someone standing near their bed, a cool presence accompanied by the faint smell of salt and lilacs. When they open their eyes, there is nothing but shadows and silence. Visitors who have encountered the apparition often speak of an intense emotional response, a sudden wave of sadness or longing that seems to come from nowhere. One tourist described climbing to the lantern room on a foggy afternoon and seeing a woman in white gazing out at the sea. Believing her to be another guest, the visitor apologized for intruding. But when she stepped forward, the figure faded like mist, leaving the glass panes empty and her heart pounding. Paranormal investigators have conducted numerous studies at Pemaquid Point Lighthouse. Drawn by the reports of ghostly activity, many have captured compelling evidence. Electronic voice phenomena recordings have picked up soft whispers and, on one occasion, the faint sound of a woman's voice calling a name lost to time. Cold spots have been measured near the lantern room, even during warm summer months. Motion sensors have triggered inexplicably in empty spaces. Photographs reveal strange anomalous streaks of light and translucent shapes resembling a woman in flowing garments. Despite the unsettling accounts, there is nothing malevolent about the woman in white. Those who claim to have seen her describe her as serene, her presence tinged with melancholy rather than menace. She seems less a spirit of terror and more a soul caught between worlds, forever searching, forever waiting for the love she lost to the unforgiving sea. Her story is a reminder of the human cost of maritime life, a tale of devotion, loss, and the fragile thread that binds us to those we cherish. Today, Pemaquid Point Lighthouse is a popular destination for travelers seeking its panoramic views and rich history. Families picnic on the grassy grounds, artists capture the rugged beauty of the cliffs, and visitors climb the narrow stairs to marvel at the lantern room's timeless charm. Yet even in the brightness of day, there are those who feel the quiet weight of her presence, a whisper of sorrow in the wind, a flicker of white against the distant glass. When night falls and the waves thunder against the rocks below, the legend comes alive. Locals say that if you stand beneath the lighthouse and look up during a storm, you might see her, a pale figure framed in the lantern's glow, gazing out over the black water as if searching for a ship that will never return. Then, in the blink of an eye, she is gone, leaving only the steady sweep of the beacon and the haunting question of why love so deep can linger beyond death. Pemaquid Point Lighthouse is more than a historic landmark. It is a place where beauty and tragedy intertwine, where the sea keeps its secrets and the wind carries voices from long ago. The woman in white remains its most enduring mystery, a ghostly sentinel watching the horizon, waiting for a reunion that time and tide have forever denied. West Quoddy Head Lighthouse, perched on the easternmost point of the United States in Lubec, Maine, has long been a symbol of endurance against the wild forces of the Atlantic Ocean. With its iconic red and white stripes and sweeping views of the rugged coastline, it has guided mariners through the dense fog and perilous currents of Quoddy Narrows since its completion in 1808. But behind its picturesque charm lies a chilling mystery: phantom lights that flicker and flash from the lantern room, even when the lighthouse itself is completely dark inside. The phenomenon has baffled locals and visitors alike for generations. On certain nights, especially during heavy fog or stormy weather, passers-by report seeing bright beams slicing through the mist, sweeping rhythmically across the waves as if warning ships of danger. Yet when the lighthouse is inspected, its beacon is found extinguished, the lantern room shrouded in darkness. These ghostly flashes appear to mimic the original light, a spectral imitation of the beacon that once saved countless lives. The legend of the phantom lights is tied to the lighthouse's long and often treacherous history. West Quoddy Head stands guard over one of the most challenging stretches of water along the Maine coast, where fierce tides, hidden reefs, and unpredictable storms have caused countless shipwrecks. In the 19th century, this area became infamous for maritime disasters. Despite the lighthouse's presence, many vessels met their end here, their crews swallowed by the sea. It is said the phantom lights belong to the spirits of those who perished, ghostly keepers and drowned sailors who refused to let the warning beacon fade, even in death. One of the most enduring stories tells of a brutal winter storm in the mid-1800s. The keeper, on duty, struggled to keep the light burning as icy winds battered the tower and waves exploded against the cliffs. Tragically, his efforts failed when the lamp extinguished during the height of the gale. A ship navigating the channel struck the rocks and sank, claiming dozens of lives. Racked with guilt, the keeper was said to have spent his remaining days in torment before dying alone in the lighthouse. Locals believe his spirit returned to continue his watch, manifesting as the spectral flashes that still sweep across the water. Eyewitness accounts of these lights are startlingly consistent. Sailors navigating the Narrows have reported seeing the familiar glow guiding them through fog, only to discover upon arrival that the lantern was never lit. Hikers along the cliffs have described brilliant beams piercing through dense mist, their arcs perfectly timed like a functioning Fresnel lens. Some visitors claim they have seen the light blaze, bright red, the original color of the beacon, before it was converted to modern optics, before vanishing without a trace. The strangest detail is that the phantom flashes often occur during electrical outages or maintenance periods, when the real light is unquestionably out of service. Coast Guard logs have documented instances of multiple witnesses seeing the beam from miles away during times when the power was down. These inexplicable reports have turned the phantom light phenomenon into one of Maine's most enduring maritime mysteries. Inside the lighthouse, eerie activity complements the stories of ghostly illumination. Keepers and staff have long reported unexplained occurrences. The sudden smell of burning oil when no lamp is lit, footsteps echoing on the spiral staircase in an empty tower, and the metallic clang of tools dropping in deserted maintenance rooms. Some have felt icy drafts sweeping through closed spaces or glimpsed fleeting shadows near the lantern room. A few claim to have heard a man's voice whispering warnings during storms, though the words are indistinct, like fragments of an echo carried on the wind. Paranormal investigators who have studied West Quoddy Head Lighthouse have collected intriguing evidence. Cameras set to monitor the lantern room have captured bursts of light inside the darkened chamber, without any apparent source. Thermal imaging devices detect sudden cold spots near the gallery during these occurrences, and electromagnetic field meters spike dramatically when the phantom flashes are visible from the outside. In one chilling recording, a faint male voice was captured saying, "Keep the light," moments before a burst of unexplained illumination flared in the room. Local lore suggests the phenomenon may not be limited to the keeper alone. Some believe the spirits of lost sailors join him, reliving their final moments and striving to prevent others from sharing their fate. The lights, in this interpretation, are not an omen of doom, but a spectral act of guardianship, a promise that the dead still watch the living from their lonely post on the edge of the continent. Despite its haunted reputation, West Quoddy Head Lighthouse remains a beloved landmark, drawing visitors from around the world. Tourists come to marvel at its bold stripes, hike the surrounding trails, and witness the sunrise from the easternmost point in the country. Yet many leave with more than photographs. Some carry with them the memory of strange lights shimmering through fog. Lights that should not exist, lights that seem to burn with the weight of history and tragedy. If you ever find yourself standing on the cliffs near West Quoddy Head on a moonless night, listen to the wind and watch the horizon. You might see a sudden flare, bright, unmistakable, sweeping across the black waters like the heartbeat of a ghost. Look closer, and you'll find the lantern room empty, its windows dark and cold. But out there in the deep Atlantic, the phantom light will still gleam, eternal and unyielding. A spectral beacon warning ships away from the rocks that claimed so many lives. It is a haunting promise carved into the fabric of this rugged coast. The light may fail, but the dead will not abandon their watch. From Florida's sunlit beaches to Maine's rocky cliffs, these lighthouses are more than monuments to the past. They are gateways to something beyond. Some call them protectors of the sea. Others call them prisons for the dead. If you ever find yourself at one of these haunted towers, listen carefully. The wind might carry a voice from long ago. The waves might whisper your name. And if you see a light flicker in the fog, don't follow it. Thank you for joining us on this eerie voyage along the haunted shores of the East Coast. If you enjoyed this journey, like, share, and subscribe for more tales that will keep you awake long after the tide goes out. Until next time, keep your lights burning, and remember the sea never forgets.